Hello everyone, and welcome to my Days of Our Lives official. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Mark pays Clyde a prison visit. According to him, Abigail persuaded Chad to travel to Paris in order to spare the kids from trauma. She's a kind individual. She's not a saint, and Clyde has done his homework on her. She's never done anything like this before, but Mark never said she was. He hasn't either. Fortunately for Clyde, they'll stop at nothing to keep their mother alive. He'll transport her safely as soon as Abigail appears. Mark assures me that Abigail will soon become Mrs. Chad DiMera. She is to be the widow DiMera, according to Clyde. Chad tells Abigail that they spend a year living in Paris at Chad and Abby's flat with the children. She believes that things will change because she has a positive vibe about the place. All he wants is to be with her. She begs for tales of their time there while he pours wine. He remembers the time at the park when Abby forced them to play back the TLC Waterfalls video with Thomas. Chad laughs at himself for falling hard and then getting really into it. Abigail chuckles and tells him he's a great husband and father. He responds, "That's because I had you by my side." While Chad pours champagne in the Paris flat, he smiles and pretends to be Abigail. Maggie drops by Julie's house with lemon bars. Julie tells Maggie about meeting Abigail while they are eating. She was quite cold to her, with eyes like those of a stranger. Julie describes it as fortunate that she remembers Brady as the driver when they spoke about Sarah. If Maggie believes Sarah is lying, she wonders. At the Kiriaki's mansion, EJ won't allow Sarah to take back the remarks she made about Brady. EJ won't have an egg on his face even when she and Xander push back. Sarah will be arrested and prosecuted with perjury if she retracts her statement. Drinking, Eric casts a chilly glance at Fiona across small bar. He recalls hearing Sarah tell Fiona that nobody could possibly know what they were discussing. He goes up to Fiona and says he's Brady's brother. Asking about the night of the accident, he sits. She questions how she could be aware of that. He asks, pointing forward, "Because you were with Brady that night, weren't you?" She says, shaking her head, that she was going to break up with Brady that evening. She had to diffuse his disagreement with the waitress when she arrived. After having a few more beers, Brady departed. The waiter stated they left together. Eric responds. A position Fiona is seated at a table in small bar and is conversing with Eric. Chad informs Abigail that things weren't great in Paris. Austin Reed, a person from her past, showed up, and he worked too much. They experienced some difficult moments, but they always overcame them together. Saying, "That's why I know we'll get through this, too," he takes her hand. Abigail acts as though she's beginning to recall. Not particular incidents, but the sense of being there. She feels like Abigail Johanna Deborah DiMera for the first time. Chad jumps up to give her a hug. She gives him a passionate kiss as she recalls how much she loves him. Clyde remarks in the jail visitor's room that it will be simpler to obtain Chad's money if he is deceased. Furthermore, since Abigail is alive, there isn't a murder victim, so he ought to be freed soon so he can get that money for himself. Regarding the drugs, his attorney is uncovering enough violations to dismiss the prosecution altogether. He assures Mark, who is terrified, that he will soon be free. Julie tells Maggie at the Horton house that she would be extremely determined to see that the person who paralyzed her received compensation if it were her. Maggie doesn't believe Sarah would lie to get it to happen. Maggie believes that Xander and Sarah can move on and recover after Brady is put behind bars. Julie casts a doubtful glance. They talk about Chad and Abby again, thinking Paris is helping them. As they marvel at Clyde's involvement, Julie says he can't harm them ever again because he's in Supermax. Xander places his hands on Sarah's shoulders as he stands behind her wheelchair. He glares at EJ, who is in front of them. Sarah admits EJ she made a mistake in a desperate manner at the mansion. He claims she will spend 10 years in prison as a result of her error. Brady accepted the sentence, and EJ will assign someone to carry it out. If Sarah, then Brady. Brady will be imprisoned using the original statement made by Sarah. Whenever they attempt to stop him, he will simply have Sarah replace Brady. He walks away, leaving things to them. Xander furiously walks out to speak with Kristen, hoping that she will still give them the serum. When Brady first went alone, Fiona followed him outside and offered to call him a cab. She later tells Eric at small bar. She let him go since he insisted he was okay. Eric queries her about her drinking that evening. Outraged, she claims she's in recovery from alcoholism and hasn't touched a drink in years. Brady's one is also brought up by Eric. He grins pleasantly when she gets bored of his questioning. He thanks her for her assistance and walks off. Clyde informs Mark in the prison that he will be the one to kill Chad. Mark declines. Either Chad dies, or your mama dies, Clyde declares. Falls facing each other, Abigail and Chad are just inches apart. She looks downcast for a moment. Abby ends her make-out session with Chad in Paris. This is beyond her ability. She tells Chad it's not a good idea to get intimate just yet, but she can't stop crying over the scenario with Mark in the flashback. They have a task to complete first. What if we tied the knot? Eric visits Sarah at the Karakis mansion. Is Brady not guilty? He queries. Do you act as your mother-in-law's substitute? While all is going on, Fiona is sipping a martini at small bar and hoping Eric enjoyed her story. Even though it may be difficult to accept, James Scott's departure from Days of Our Lives, where he played Stefano's, perhaps, preferred son EJ for 8 years, happened 10 years ago. We believed EJ had passed away at the moment, but a few years later we found out he was still alive. A few years after that, he made a spectacular comeback sporting a new look and his same bad boy demeanor. Though, as we all know, Dan Furrigal took up the position in 2021, thus Scott did not return. Following his appearance on Days of Our Lives, Scott made his primetime debut on the brief series Private Eyes and Wrecked. And that concluded his career in Hollywood. Apparently for good. He made that very evident in 2020 when a fan wrote on an Instagram post about how much she missed and loved Sammy and EJ. Days of Sammy and EJ Tango. He thanked his fan and replied back, "Please know that I would never. Absolutely never, never, never. Leave Days of Our Lives alone and return to Hollywood. For me, there is nothing intriguing there. And we have a tendency to accept him." Following his career as an actor, Scott launched The Whisper Within, a website and life coaching service. He said at the time that it happened because, despite all of his efforts as an actor pursuing fame and fortune, he was left feeling empty within. After visiting a meditation center in India, he had a renewed sense of purpose and self and wanted to share that with others. Scott hasn't returned to Hollywood or the soap opera industry since then, despite the removal of his website and Instagram account. Since then, he has kept a quiet profile, but we hope that the inner serenity he discovered endures and that whatever project Scott is working on brings him the fulfillment that acting seems to have denied him.